Desert Showdown in Pokemon Amber episode 14.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 14.
In the last part we learned
I'm
about
Gabe,
eyes
and today
saw
we'll
some
be
new
meeting
Pokemon.
some new Pokemon along the arid Route 7. But first, in the last episode, you arrived in Tri-Town and defeated the Team Arc Grunts.
They had a lot of
Pokemon.
Well, by Team Grunt standards.
But
when you have over like 1,000 Pokemon, you know, just in general, you better have more than 3 Pokemon on a team, you know? That stuff's possible in Gen 1 and 2. After a while, it's just like, bruh. I know you gotta limit the decks, you can't have them all when you got over 1,000, but
still. The gate to the north is still locked to you, so you set your sights on the head researcher to the south. This is Route 7. The gentle grasslands of Route 6 have faded into barren scrublands and desert.
Yeah, right? This is a wasteland.
The Pokemon here are hardy and resilient. You observe Simirage, Slothomp, and Rhinozy, along with a new species of Pokemon that's running across the desert dunes.
Oh look, another new one.
You feel as though you've seen it before. Yes, primal form time.
Ooh, Cranidos is primal form.
We don't have many first stage fossil Pokemon left, and today we'll be tackling Cranidos. This line is based on Pachycephalosaurus, but there have been some discoveries and theories since the original design came out. The biggest one that I want to play off is that young members of this head-butting family did not start off life with their big bulbous heads.
Huh.
Instead, their heads started off much flatter with sharper horns, only to become rounded domes as the animal developed.
Interesting.
This process of changing appearance is quite common amongst dinosaurs, and it is likely that some similar but smaller species are actually just juveniles with drastically different skull shapes.
Whoops.
And that's a long, rambly way for me to say that Lil Cranidos is getting a head shape similar to a juvenile Pachycephalosaurus or a Dracorex.
Well, Cranidos being looking similar-ish to Bastiodon actually kind of makes sense, because I believe in the Gen 4 lore,
there wasn't much else that I needed to do for this design.
Rourke,
it will start out as
the
first
gym leader, was actually the son of the Steel type gym leader whose name escapes me at the moment.
Be sure to let me know your guesses as to what
Although
that
could just be an
secondary
anime
type may
thing where they were like
Anyway,
father and son. I don't know
is Primal
for sure.
Cranidos, the headbutt Pokemon.
They recolored him too.
This correctly restored fossil Pokemon has a flat skull. Primal Cranidos
I don't hate it, but I think I kind of prefer the old one, but that might just be nostalgia for like seeing the anime as a kid and all that jazz. Well, I don't hate this, to be clear. I don't think this is like worse. I think they're just different type designs.
Its ability is Iron Barbs, and so that's when this Pokemon is hit by a contact move, the attacker loses some HP.
Dang.
He's got those little spikes on him. You watch the
1/8 isn't much when you have like 20 HP, but it's a lot when you get into, you know, later in the game.
The heat is really starting to get to you, but luckily you spot a small oasis ahead. The lush vegetation that has sprung up around it seems very out of place, and you see
it's called an oasis. They aren't unheard of.
The water. You actually wonder if this oasis and the Pokemon are a mirage, because it is truly bizarre looking.
I'll say.
What
the frig? What is this, the first centipede?
On one of the most perplexing Cambrian fossils.
Yeah, right?
Paleontologists initially weren't certain like which way was up and which way was forward on this animal.
Where's the head?
It seemed
Where's
to
the
be
monster start and end?
Of spikes and noodly appendages. It was initially and incorrectly reconstructed so that it shimmied around on long spiky legs. And that's the body plan that will be the basis of this design.
Oh, the old design, where we got it backwards. Whoops!
But for now, this little derpy Pokemon
hey, you could go off of like theories like that. I mean, the Fossil War Pokemon in Gen 8 were pretty cool.
Hallucigenia got its name because it was just so strange that it looked like a hallucination. And we're gonna run with that.
It's not scientifically accurate. It's still cool.
I figured that a combination of the poison and psychic types best represented the name.
That's nice.
It took me a bit of time playing with the colors, eventually landing on something similar to the Slowpoke line, though tweaked slightly.
The Galarian
and with
form.
That, I give you Hallucip, the confusing Pokemon.
You look at this and go,
from this perplexing Pokemon have been known for years, but its biology still remained a mystery. Advances in the Paleon
Even
region
it doesn't know how it works.
To be restored successfully. But its complete appearance is still
true for
quite
humans
strange.
Until like we start
This
dissecting
Pokemon
people
scurries
and
about
stuff like
in
that.
shallow waters, walking forwards and backwards.
How do you work?
with
I don't know. I
fragments.
just do, bro.
And its ability is Poison Point, so contact moves with the Pokemon may poison the attacker.
Neat.
Halusip scoot around in the water, smiling up at you with goofy blank expressions. You continue through the desert heat until you come across Professor Ginkgo, resting under a solitary palm tree.
Here, take some water and let me heal up your Pokemon. Always good to see your advancement. I'm meeting with some researchers ahead. We're going to figure out what needs to be done about Team Arc. Some of us think we need to get them off this nature preserve right away. Maybe you could help with that.
No.
But of course, let's see how you and your Pokemon are faring.
Of course,
Ginkgo
battle.
Challenges you to a Pokemon battle. She leads with her starter as always, which you have learned how to counter by now. She uses Primal Omastar next,
Ammonite.
followed by a Cortulli. Lastly, she brings out Little Rhinosi's evolution. Yes, our little grass rhino Pokemon is going to take on some of the characteristics of a woolly rhinoceros.
I feel like we're getting too many new Pokemon, like there's a new, like 3 new ones every episode. I know that's the entire appeal of the Pokemon. There's always a new one around every corner and stuff, but I don't know, it just feels like there hasn't been an episode where it's like, okay, you know what, all those ones you know already, you're good here.
Rhinosi had a single leaf on
Maybe
its
it's a
back
me
that
thing,
it
I
tried
don't
to
know.
seek shelter under, but it didn't really shield its nose, and Rhinosi ended up with a sunburn. We're gonna let that sunburn worsen with the evolution.
Oh, you
the
jerk.
horn will be so sunburnt and will have absorbed so much solar energy that it will gain the fire typing. I'm really happy with this. I mean, I've seen a lot of amazing grass fire designs out there, usually being, you know, like a chili pepper or torches or pumpkins or something like that. But for filling in this unused typing, I'm glad that I found an inn that I hadn't seen before.
Firegrass.
The colors are, you know, similar to its pre-evolution, but I made sure to give it like a light-colored nostril to suggest that the burning fire now exists all the way inside its nose.
Dang.
Oh, and again, I got to have fun with the shiny by pulling in some autumn leaf inspiration. Checking off another unused type
I wonder if
combination.
it'll still be your best friend if you pour some water in it.
Rhinoseer.
Ooh, I like that shiny design.
The sunburned spot on Rhinosi's nose grows into a burning hot horn
when
it
has
evolves.
feet anymore.
Rhinoseer try to stay positive, but often struggle adapting to their new fire typing.
Actually, it could burn itself to the ground.
They run their itchy horns against trees, leaving long scorched grooves. Rhinoseer's leaves have a waxy coating to protect against their own horn's heat. Its ability is something
your body's fighting against itself.
So, making contact with another Pokemon may leave it burn.
This is kind of reminds me of the way of stomach acid, how it could freaking digest your entire insides, but it stays and your, except for your stomach, because it's the only part of you that's coated in this protective enzyme. It's like, why is this here? I know it's for digestion, but this just sounds like a bad idea.
With their moves and their trainers using more effective tactics. So yeah, Rhinoseer is a toughie, but eventually you are able to defeat Professor Ginkgo. Professor Ginkgo congratulates
you. Well, Firegrass, what are you gonna do? Flying types, ground.
While you're making your way there, let's take a look at how your Pokedex is coming along. This channel is relatively new, but we have certainly been busy.
Dang.
When we go ahead and include
you feel like half the Pokedex, I want to say.
We've filled in a little over half of our decks already.
I'll say, you're going to run out of inventing new Pokemon.
That's not to say that we won't be expanding our decks as we continue.
Naturally.
The next bonus video isn't a design your ideas video, but another one of those will be coming up soon, so keep an eye out for that. Those extra designs are a fun way to expand things. We're currently sitting in the 130s,
could be wrong, though.
Oh, wait, no, I see the Vibra, by the time we end the decks. But, continuing on, you've reached the end of Route 7, a large gate leading to Rassi Junction. But
which we'll not get to in the next episode. Or later in this episode.
Thank you so much for watching, and please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Okay. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts
on today's
episode. and which of the
new primal form, which is alright. The Rhinosphere I think is the best.
And thank you to the
that could just because I'm biased to like fire types. The Halicips I like too.
Oh, and cool. In the next bonus episode, I'll be doing some.
Maybe I'm doing an old man yells at cloud by being like, there's a new Pokemon around every corner. It's like,
bye.
I don't know. Maybe it's probably old man yells at cloud. I mean, the entire point of this thing is just to be like, oh, check out all the new Pokemon I made up. It's not much of a fake mon thing if we're not inventing new fake mons, right? I don't know. It just kind of feels like we're just plowing through this thing. But hey, I guess that just makes the thing go faster, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the next episode before I take too long. How to fix the Pokemon type chart. Look,
hello everyone,
in my opinion, you can do a lot to fix it.
Episode.
But at this point, I don't think you should, just for the sheer fact of we've all basically started to figure this stuff out. We understand how it works.
We're going to look at how incredibly unbalanced it is and the method
that
we
it's
use
not
to
balanced
fix
in
it.
the slightest.
We'll go over the type's new strengths and weaknesses, and finally end with one more incredibly important additional change to the type chart. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started.
We give normal types.
The type chart
something to be super effective against, which defeats the
Anyone
purpose.
who is telling you otherwise either has Pokemon they love who benefit from it, or just don't realize how skewed it actually is. But for the most part, we can all agree that types like grass, bug, and ice are just objectively not as good as, say, steel or fire.
Well, that's easy.
But exactly how broken are things? Well, I jumped into Google Sheets and did some spreadsheet magic.
Because when all else fails, just open a spreadsheet.
Simple functions, I was able to create a type chart that I could modify, and it would automatically update each type's offensive, defensive, and overall goodness. Mathematically, I landed on valuing different factors like this. Being able to deal super effective damage gives a +1 value. Having something resist your attack is a -1.
Okay.
And if something is immune to your attack entirely, that adds a -2 to the value. And of course, these numbers are also used from a defensive perspective as well.
Naturally.
Pokemon battles are an incredibly complicated and nuanced set of interactions. So
yes.
I did play with altering those numbers just to see how much it changed things. Maybe a super effective attack is 1.
And the answer was a lot.
Resistive attack is -1/2, and immunity is -1. I looked at a few different options, but
it's almost like it's a very complex thing with no right or wrong answer.
The numbers only fluctuated by like 1/2 in either direction. For the sake of this process, we'll be sticking with the 1, -1, -2 values. Now, of course, that's not quite the end of it. There are 2 more factors to take into consideration. These are a little less numerically rigid, but do help fine-tune the final results. First off, we need to acknowledge that some types get additional advantages in battle. Steel types can't be poisoned, electric types can't be paralyzed, flying types get to avoid all those pesky entry hazards.
I still love those memes of it, like Marowak used Bone Meringue, Noctowl was unaffected. It's hitting him right in the face!
The lower level types fare against them. For instance, the steel typing
Flygon used Dig.
Typhlosion
used Earthquake. Flygon is unaffected because it's levitating. It's underground!
Higher in the usability. And that leaves us with a final approximate score for each type. Anyone who has played the games shouldn't be too surprised by the results. Steel type is just overpowered.
Yep.
Mainly due to the overabundance.
It even got a new type to resist in fairies.
When I tweaked the values in the chart, it didn't change too much.
I think they did change it so it was no longer basically immune to dark, but
after that, we got types that are just fantastic.
It only really screwed over Metagross,
water,
and that's
ground,
about
flying, ghost, and of course fairy. These types just have more working for them than against them.
Yeah.
Next,
fire is freaking like next to immune to fairy, but not super effective.
Fighting,
which is like
poison, rock, dark, and dragon. I mean, I was expecting dragon to be a little higher,
right?
And it probably should be, since those Pokemon tend to have.
I mean, it was, and then they invented fairy
totals. And then there's our bad types: normal, ice, psychic, and then grass and bug sitting way at the bottom.
I'm sorry, Bulbasaur. I'm so sorry. I still love you.
It's just a bummer to see, especially if anyone is partial to, grass or bug types. how are we going to fix things? Well, we're going to make a new blank type chart and start plugging in numbers
type,
and let the functions take care of the rest. All we're aiming for is to have all the
Insert
types
type
end up with
here.
the same total. Ideally, we keep the interactions that are logical or thematic and remove any that just don't make any sense.
So I
why
removed
the heck
everything.
Does steel resist psychic or flying attacks? What's up with that?
Yes.
Now, rather than going through the long,
well, you see, according to the ancient lore of tinfoil hats, frig off.
We're just going to talk about the results for each type. Oh, and to help balance things further, every type will get a battle effect, just like, steel's immunity to poison. First up, we have the good old, reliable normal type. One of its greatest flaws is that it isn't able to hit anything for super effective damage.
Unless you count nuclear type in Pokemon Uranium.
Away at another powerhouse type, the fairy type. Taking a page straight out of Peter Pan and other fairy stories, we're going to have our plain and boring normal type kill some fairies by simply saying, I don't believe in fairies. Nobody will be clapping to bring the fairies back. The normal typing is going to get a little more character because of this, as it will signify the ordinary, a lack of magic and a refusal of
I don't believe in you!
So, it is now able to hit fairies for super effective damage while resisting fairy attacks. Normal and ghost types still won't be able to hit each other, and we're also adding one more weakness. Psychic will be able to invade.
I mean, it's kind of bullcrap the fact that normal isn't immune to everything, but
is that it will be immune
not able to be
to
super
the
effective
curse
against
effect.
anything. But
this was difficult to decide on, and it's probably the least good battle effect, which is maybe okay for the normal type.
That's fine.
Fire
they don't need to be superheroes or
largely
anything.
Unchanged with two small tweaks. Fire used to resist fairy type moves, but we're going to swap this so it can do super effective damage to fairies instead.
Okay.
The logic still stays the same. Fire burns the natural world and fake
and the unnatural world.
But in general, during this rebalancing, I'm trying to lower the overall number of interactions and especially cut back on the number of resistances. The other change is boosting the dragon typing by giving it an immunity to fire. And we'll get to the
I thought it already was immune to fire.
The dragon type. The fire type's battle ability is to be immune to burn. Now, you may have noticed that it has a little star by it. That means that there's another type that shares this same ability. And if a Pokemon is dual type with both, it gets a slightly better version of it. So, in this case, a fire dragon type, instead of being immune to burn, it can now be burned, but it doesn't have to worry about losing attack or HP. It essentially keeps it from acquiring another status condition.
So that's a power at that point.
Unchanged. It is,
They're
however,
just immune to other status conditions.
Resistance to ice. This never really made sense to me. Oh, and it's also going to gain a weakness to poison types. This was one of the most obvious changes to make on the whole
water
chart.
gets polluted.
Of course, water should be weak to poison. Oh, and lastly, for a battle effect, water types now regain a small amount of HP in the rain.
So they all have rain dish
Probably
ability.
1/16 of max HP, like the leftovers item.
Yeah, keep it fair.
Wrapping up the starter types, we've got the grass type. I love grass types, and I was so happy to give it the love that it needed.
So I gave it more weaknesses.
So many types resisting it that just didn't really make sense. Fire resisting grass, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But all the rest of the grass resistances gotta go. Like dragon,
all of
why
them?
are you resisting grass? Get out of here with that.
That is a little
I
bull
wish I had been able to keep poison resisting grass. That kind of makes sense, but it also just didn't end up working out.
Not to mention there's a lot of poison grass types, so you're immune to yourself.
It also loses its resistances to grass and electric attacks, but loses its weakness to flying. I mean, I get it.
It loses
Birds
its weakness,
can land on
its immunity
trees
to
and
grass
eat
types.
Leaves, I guess, but like everything eats leaves, so that's always been a dumb reason. Its battle effect is remaining the same, so that's immunity to Leech Seed and all powder moves.
They used to confuse the friggin' out of me as a kid why I could Leech Seed a grass
changes.
type.
Defensively, it is in exactly the same place, but offensively, rock types now resist electric. but it is able
like they're
to hit
supposed
steel
to. The
types
problem
for
is that
super
most rock
effective
types are
damage
also for
since
ground
metals
types, so
are
you
so
know.
conductive. Its battle effects stay the same, remaining immune to paralysis.
Makes sense.
Ah, the ice type. Yet another one that needed some serious help. Oh, and for a lot of this reasoning, we'll be treating the ice type less as the frozen water type and more the
water type,
of
but
frigid
cold.
temperatures. Because of that, it is no longer resisted by water or steel. But it no longer hits ground types for super effective damage.
But that's corrosion! That's
The
actually
reasoning
based
is
on a
that
thing in
ice types
science.
would freeze over the ground so that nothing could grow, but they're ground types, not grass types, so what do they care? Yeah.
I mean, true, but I like that it's based off of science.
Also, defensively, it's gaining a resistance to the flying type. The reasoning here is a little weaker, and it was primarily due to table balancing.
I threw ice at a bird and it died. There's my reasoning.
Fighting type. Offensively, it never really made sense for fairy or bug to resist fighting, so those have to go.
Have you ever tried to punch a fairy?
That means
you can't because they don't exist in real life.
But it loses its weakness to fairy types, which I, again, never understood. Fighting types are often tied to justice and order, so why would the goodness of fairy types be super effective against them?
It's called violence versus pacifism.
Oh, and for its battle effect, we're going to make the fighting type immune to both flinch and taunt due to their, combat prowess.
Makes sense.
Poison had a lot of reworking.
I basically remade a new type.
Super effective against water and bug types, which makes sense.
Kind of like how Arceus remade how freezing works.
Psychic will. And defensively, it's losing its weakness to ground, since, again, their connection was dubious to start. But it's no
called ground
longer
pollution. I threw trash on the ground and it hurt.
Immunity to poison.
Although if you want to get into technicalities, everything should be weak to poison.
It can be poisoned again, but it will gain
except poison
1/6 of its HP instead of losing it. Ground. Right away, ground has a bunch of offensive changes.
And
it
immunities.
Doesn't get to hit poison, rock, or steel for super effective damage anymore. I never understood the connection between ground and poison, so that's gotta go. And ground being good against rock
I think
and
I can
steel,
explain, but I can't think of anything.
Is that because sand can cover those things? I mean, that's what I've always heard as an explanation.
Ground and steel, it's caught there's an earthquake, the entire steel structure comes tumbling down.
Is it going to be resisting ground anymore? Ground type does lose its rock and poison resistances in turn, but also loses its ice weakness. And lastly, it will resist fire. Its battle effect is an immunity to sandstorm damage, but then a rock and ground type Pokemon will not only resist sandstorm, but it will gradually gain HP, 1/16 each turn.
Interesting.
Flying type is very straightforward. It is no longer going to hit grass types for super effective damage to help that type out.
I mean, yeah, but
it's also
come on.
no longer going to be resisted by steel, since why would steel resist flying? So dumb. But
have you ever seen a bird fly into a building?
Instead.
The building wins every time.
It's just not going to resist
What's the giant
types
claw?
And of course, it still gets to ignore all the entry hazards and other ground-based attacks. Going into this, I did not realize how much help Psychic actually needed. First off,
I mean,
why
they were the
was
best
Steel
type in
resisting
Gen 1.
Psychic? What?
Because
Steel,
they were introduced to be a hard counter to Steel type and try to more balance the game.
The bug type
Did it work?
Psychic,
Your results
since,
may vary.
Insectoid brains are so different.
But it was needed.
On the contrary, it is now able to hit normal types for super effective damage, since, they're so smart and normal types are so
I am so smart.
normal. Leaning into the intelligence of the Psychic type, we're going to really stretch our reasoning to balance the chart, and have the Psychic type hit Fairy type for super effective damage.
Because I'm so smart, I don't believe in you.
This is the weakest connection on the whole chart. But let's just say, I don't know.
Do you think that normal types don't believe in you? Well, I really don't believe in you, and I have science to prove it.
Childish fairy stories and fables. I don't know. That one was tough. If you have a better reasoning for why Psychic is good against Fairy, be sure to
No, because I didn't come up with the idea, so it's not my job to give you an excuse.
And the Psychic type gets to be immune to confusion attacks. Oh, but
That's
we'll
neat.
say it can still get confused if it uses a move like Outrage that confuses itself. The bug type also
I guess the
needed
confusion
a
just
lot
wouldn't
of
do
love.
anything then.
There were a
It'd
ton of
just be
types
for
that resisted it, kind of
balancing?
just like Grass type. So now Bug type will be able to hit Fighting, Ghost, Fire, Steel, and Fairy for normal damage. It's
Why
not gaining
fire?
any additional super effective attacks, but getting rid of those other types' pesky resistances does a lot. Defensively, there's
Have you ever
also
tried
a lot
to burn
to
a
change.
bug? The
Bug
fire
was
wins.
weak to fire
The bug
because
doesn't really get to do
fire
much about it.
burns bugs, I guess.
I haven't tried to burn a bug, but
Fire
it's called.
burns everything.
I know
so
about
that's
the
dumb.
old
No
magnifying
longer
glass
weak to
at
fire.
ant hills.
Same goes for
Never
rock.
did it, but I know of it.
Not weak to rock either. Bug no longer resists grass, fighting, or ground though. And
We
it's
gave
weak
it
to
no
poison.
immunities.
For its battle effect, we're going to make it so that bug types are immune to all binding moves, since they can just, like, wriggle out of those attacks.
I mean, that's okay.
Rock
like,
type.
Bind
Rock
and constrict
no
and
longer
stuff.
hits bug for super effective damage, we covered that. But
I threw
ground
a
types
rock
no
at a
longer
bug, it
resist rock.
died.
The rock type does lose its resistances to normal and fire types, but gains a resistance to the electric type. Oh, and it loses
I'm
its
okay with
weakness
that.
to ground. And it shares the same battle effect with a ground type, so it's immune to sandstorm damage, and if it's a rock
Those two
ground
being a
type,
bit more
it
related
regains
is
HP
okay
in the
overall, I
sandstorm
guess.
instead. Ghosts.
'Cause they
Very
have
little
so
to
much in
change about the
common.
ghost type. The fairy type now resists it, and the ghost type loses its resistance to bug type. Plus, it retains its current battle effect.
Bugs don't
being
believe in
immune
ghosts,
to
don't you
recall
know?
and escape blocking effects. Yeah, ghost types, they're ghost types. They're good to go. Dragon type.
Yeah, it's overall fine.
Offensively, guess what? Steel is going to lose another one of its nonsensical resistances. You know, I get it. You could say that it's the sword slaying the dragon, but we
Mythology
need to bump
versus
Steel
technology.
down and bring dragon up. So, no resistance there. Other than that, the offenses are exactly the same. Defensively, it no longer resists grass. This made no sense, especially when you think of the fairy type as being tied to nature, so neutral damage from grass types. But the dragon type is gaining an immunity to the fire type. This is to continue playing up the reptilian weakness to ice, along with referencing how in many cultures dragons can breathe fire anyway.
Okay, I can get down with that.
And like the fire type, its battle effect is to be immune to burn. Oh, and, you know, a fire dragon type can get burned, but nothing negative happens. We went over that.
Okay.
Dark type. I did not realize until I had finished, but the dark type is the only type that I did not end up making a single change to.
It's
when I was
perfect the way it is.
It all
we'll leave it alone.
The same, including the battle effect.
That's funny when you just run it out, just
the
like,
effects of the
actually, you're
ability.
free to go. We don't
If it
need
ain't
you
broke,
here.
don't fix it. Good job, dark type.
Yeah.
Steel. Okay. Time to fix the entitled problem child. The only resistances
Game Freaks would try to do that.
are rock,
Results may
steel,
vary.
and fairy, while getting hit for super effective damage by fire, electric, and fighting. But at least it
by the way,
isn't
in the
weak to
Dragon,
ground
I did
anymore,
appreciate
I
that it
guess.
kept the
and
no effect
offensively,
on fairy
it's
thing,
the same,
just
except for
because
it doesn't get to
that
hit
was the
ice
point
types
of
for super
introducing
effective
fairy in the
damage
first place.
anymore.
It'd be
And again, that's
stupid to
because
change
our
that.
ice typing is
I don't think it
less
would
about
do
being
that. I'm
frozen
just
water
saying I
and
appreciate
more
that it
about
kept
being
it is all.
frigid temperatures. It shares its battle effects with the poison type, so poison immunity, and the dual type of those two, again, regains HP when poisoned. The fairy type got a total overhaul. Now, it doesn't hit fighting types for super effective damage, we covered that, but it does hit ghost types. And then, it is no longer resisted by fire and poison, but is resisted by the normal type. Defensively, it no longer resists fighting or bug attacks.
It's still immune to dragons,
does
though.
resist ghosts.
Still just like give a
But
singular
it is now, of course,
fuck.
getting beat up by
I
the
love
normal
that
type,
image of like, I
psychic
think
type,
it's like,
and fire types.
what was like a
Oh, and its
Clefairy,
battle
I want to
effect is
say,
an immunity
just
to
staying on a
fluctuations.
tile, like a
And there it
pile
is,
of
the new type
like
chart.
pseudo
It took a lot
legendary
of time,
dragons, high
but we wound up
dragon,
with something that is
dragonite,
actually
a
pretty
bunch of other
balanced.
stuff.
Or at the very
running
least,
it.
far more balanced than the current
It's
type chart.
glorious.
But what do you think? Are there any changes that you just can't get behind? Or are there any tweaks that you agree are just obvious fixes to make? Let me know down in the comments below. Oh, and making a table like I did, is actually super easy. I encourage you to give it a try for yourself. Oh, but before you run away and do that, at the beginning of this very long video, I mentioned one more change I was going to make to the type chart. So when you have a dual type Pokemon, their weaknesses and resistances interact in fun ways. Most of which I want to keep the same, right? A weakness and a resistance canceling each other out. Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
An immunity canceling all damage, regardless of it being paired with a resistance or a weakness. Sure, why not?
Okay.
2 resistances leading to only taking 1/4 damage. Yeah, great, perfect. But 2 weaknesses combining to take 4 times damage, I think that's where we need a change.
I don't know, I like hitting a fortress with flamethrower.
3 times damage.
I mean, okay, yeah, 4 is a little much, but it's still funny to me.
2 times and 2 times equals 4 times, right? But mathematically, it leads to an imbalance in how much overall damage is being taken across all attacking types compared to another balanced dual type without
Tri-weak doesn't hit the same as Quad-weak, but that's because 4 is a bigger number than
3 times modifier. And that's it. No type chart is going to be perfect, and there are always going to be certain dual type combinations that are better than others. But I think we fixed
I'm not taking this chart into
condition
when he introduces new types, though.
A huge
I spent too long learning the actual one. I'm not learning a new one on top of it and memorizing it all.
Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and I would
I
love
don't
to
think
hear your
anyone's
thoughts
gonna
on the
ask
type
that of
chart
me either.
down in the
It's like, we're
comments
moving
below.
on.
I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Like, if I can remember it, I can try to, of course, but other than that, I'm just gonna keep going with the normal chart. I don't have... Am I being a little bit of a negative Nancy? Yeah. Yeah, I am probably just being overly negative in this. I don't know, maybe just because... Stop changing! I hate change! Old man yells at Cloud. I remember, I was there for the friggin' fairy-type introduction fiasco, and we all... Well, okay, not we all, but... A lot of people didn't like it. And then they all moved on with their days because there were bigger problems in life to worry about than a fairy-type Pokemon. But still, you know, people don't like change, generally speaking. I don't know. If Game Freak has always been trying to balance the game in certain ways, like the physical special split and stuff like that, and reworking some type immunities and other jazz. The game will never be balanced. It'll never be 100% perfect, but they're trying to do it overall. I mean, it's not, and to be fair to them, it's not like you can just press a magic button and instantly fix all your problems. Lord knows if that button existed, they'd be mashing the fuck out of it, as we all would if we all had that in our lives, you know, just like instantly fix all of my problems? Press. What's the cause? No cause. Definitely press. I'll take a finger off to do that, sure. I don't know, getting a little dark there. But yeah. Overall, ignoring the old man yells at Cloud approach of being like, I don't like change, I think that generally all of these were fine. Like, there were some of them where I'm like, come on, bruh. But, like, you know, flying is no longer no longer super effective against grass. Or, like, rock is no longer super effective against flying or something like that. It's like, okay, I know what you're doing, it's for overall balance, stuff like that, but it's like, that one made sense, though. Some of these are like, I can actually genuinely explain, although some of them are just like, okay, yeah, the dragon being, I always thought dragon was like resistant to fire, but no, the dragon being immune to grass, like resistant to grass is baloney. I'll give you that one all day. I'll never argue with that point. And yeah, giving the rock and ground more correlation does make sense, given the fact that most rock types are part ground type as well. Not all, but most, I like to think. And so, giving them the electric immunity makes sense as well. And yeah, he had a lot of good reasons for this. Again, most of it is overall for the sake of balance and just keeping things intact. It will be a perfect chart? No, never. It will never be 100% perfect, and this game will never be 100% balanced. That's not physically possible. But you can still do your best and get, if it's mostly balanced, then that's good enough, rather than a complete jumbled mess of a game with tier 0 formats. Even in Pokemon, you can't escape it. Anyone remember Chalk? probably not a lot. Unless you watch False Swipe Gaming, he brings up once in a while. The point is, though, overall, I think that this chart was good, but I don't know if Game Freak would ever implement it. Like, sure, Game Freak, hire this man, I guess, if you want to be like that. I don't have a problem with it. I don't care if they do that to rebalance their game. They can go right ahead and hire this man. Maybe the game would be better competitively. I don't know, but we're almost at Gen 10. It's a little too late to introduce a whole new type chart. If they introduce a new type or something like that, that would already throw off the freaking chart. Now you're gonna ask them to relearn everything, and then have to relearn it from the old games and stuff like that. Well, to be fair, for the old games, they're not as hard considering most of the normal types return to fairies, but that's a bit of a thing. Either way, would this be healthy for the game? Maybe, but I don't know. Might be a lot to ask for players. It wouldn't kill the game, because Pokemon will never die. Let's be real here. It's never going to be a dead franchise, unless Disney gets their hands on it. But overall, it'll be fine. But it would cause some backlash, I imagine. Or who knows, maybe it'd be overall praise. I don't know. I think a fan doing this would be fine. Game Freak doing it themselves, ugh, look out for that. It'll be a fun day on Twitter. Oh wait, it's Twitter. Who gives a frig? I don't know. Overall, if you felt like I was an old man yells at Cloud too much, fair point, probably was. Maybe it's a little bit of a me problem. But yeah. I think he did a good job overall with the chart. So, to be positive, it's like, overall, yeah, this game needs to be more rebalanced. You were trying to rebalance it. I don't agree with every decision, but a lot of it makes sense, and you gotta do what you can, right? Normal type being surveyed against nothing is baloney, and steel types being immune to basically everything is also baloney. This game needs more work. What are you gonna do? Well, make a type chart, so at least you tried. At least you try to do something, right? He didn't just be like, this was a problem, I'm going to do nothing about it. No, he tried to do something about it. So, yeah. I'll give him credit there. So, yeah. So, good work to Fruity Art. I hope you enjoyed the episodes. Link to his channel in the description. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Later.